llamo Denise. I think that means my name is Denise, and that's about all I remember from Spanish. So I want to show you what comes with your kit. Let's talk about the different shapes in case you haven't figured it out. So I have a sample done, and I'm going to demonstrate what they're going to be. The chili pepper, you'll have 3 of those in your set. We have a half circle in your set, and I'm going to show you how you can turn it either into a taco or a lime wedge. So you can use it for either of those or both. You have some cactus cookies and some sombreros. I think I have one at home. I'm sad I didn't bring it. All right, so before we do anything, I'd like to talk about how to trim your piping bags. So in your kit, you have 5 different colors of piping bags. Trimming the bag is really important because you don't want to trim it too small and you don't want to trim it too big. So there's just kind of a nice sweet spot for that. And I'm just trimming off a bit, and I'll show you what that looks like by demonstrating the practice sheet and how the icing will come out on the practice sheet. So I'm going to move this up out of the way and have you come take a closer look so you can see how the icing will cover my lines. Okay, so I am right-handed, so I'm squeezing at the top of my piping bag with my right hand, and I use my left hand to just guide it along. I'm squeezing just a little bit with my right hand, and I'm dragging the line and pulling down and pulling up. So there's a lot happening here. Let me talk about it. First thing I want to show you is my icing bag is not touching the paper. It's just hovering above. So that's one thing, is that you want to just show your icing where to go by dragging it along. When you stop a line, you press down and pull up. So let's practice stopping it, press down and pull up. It happens in one solid motion, and that takes some practice. Don't worry if it's not happening. And if your icing isn't coming out well enough right now, that means you might need to have it trimmed just a little bit more. It's good to trim just a little bit at a time. You can always trim more, but if you trim it too big, that will get annoying and you'll have to rebag it. And I'll show you how to do that. All right, so straight lines are a great place to start. Let's start moving our lines in our hand a little bit more. So I am just showing this icing where to go, and it's following along as I make the moves. Notice I trimmed my bag just big enough that it's covering the black line. That's the perfect size. It's not trimmed too small, and it's not trimmed too big. There we go. Let's try a wavy line now. And don't worry if your icing is not looking the way mine is. I've done this for many years, so I've had a lot of practice. And the more you're going to practice, the better you're going to get too. I like to do this before starting on the cookies because the cookies are kind of like our final project. And it's always good to do some practice before the final report or final game. Practice is a good thing. And when I go too fast, my circles do not turn out well. Circles are one of the hardest shapes to do, so don't worry if your circles are not going so smoothly. They're really tricky to do. All right, and then the heart. So on the heart, you can either do it all at once, or some people like to do both halves. So if you want to do that half and then lift up your bag and start up at the top again. There we go. So maybe you're feeling a little more comfortable using your icing now. We're going to set that practice sheet aside. We're done with that, and we can bring our cookies closer. So I trimmed this bag. I'm going to trim my other bags now too. It's It's always good to trim off away from your cookies so that you don't get the little plastic tip on your cookies. There we go. Yep. All right, so I am going to do one of each of these for you and demonstrate how to do each one. So I'm gonna bring those closest to me. I like to work closest to the edge of the table. I don't like reaching across the tray. I shuffle cookies around a lot when I move, or even if you have like a cookie tray you're working with, you can move your tray around to bring the cookies closer to you. So you'll get into your style. All right, so this is just an example of the coloring you can do on your cookies. There's no right or wrong way to do it. So I use my napkin a lot, especially in the beginning, to make sure my bags are nice and clean and I have a good start, because this is the foundation for the rest of your work. So I always try to do my best to make my lines in the outlining phase the best that I can. So there are 3 steps in cookie decorating. First step is outlining, the second step is flooding, and the third step is detailing, where we add all the little faces and the special touches. So outlining is first, and we're just making outside barriers on all of the cookies. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm gonna start on this pepper here. Okay, so I'm just following along the outline of the cookie. I'm trying to go to the edge without letting my lines slip over. If you're not happy with any of your lines, you can use your toothpick and scrape it off and start again. So you want to be as satisfied as you can with your lines right now. I'm going to add my green after. So that's as far as I'm going to go right now with the chili pepper. All right, next I'm going to do a taco and a lime wedge. So for the taco, I'm going to leave a little bit of space for all those toppings. And I'm going to make a half circle on the inside. All right, and I'm going to stop there on that one. I'm going to do my lime wedge, or if you want to do more tacos, you know, I don't like how small this one came out, so I'm going to trim it just a little bit more. I can tell that's not going to be a thick enough line. I'm going to get a toothpick and just scrape it off and start again. There we go, and I'm going to stop on that. So with the green, I'm going to continue on to the cactus. I'm going to create 2 side parts of the cactus and 1 middle. There we go. And the sombrero, I'm going to do it in yellow. I'm sure sombreros can be any color. So please have fun with your color choices. There we go. Okay, so I'd like you to finish outlining all the rest of your cookies, just as I've done with these examples. So I am going to get ready for my second step now, which is flooding. You've just outlined all your cookies, and now we're going to get ready to fill in the cookies. We can either flood with the bags just as they are. If you think you've trimmed them on the bigger side, go ahead and flood them with those bags. But if you feel like some of your lines are a little too fine and you want to trim it more, now would be a good time to trim them a little more. So I know my green I want to trim just a little bit more, not too much, just a little more. And I also noticed my red, just want to trim a bit more. I don't want it to pour out. I just want it to come out a little bit faster. At this time, I'm also gonna get my sprinkles ready. On the cactus cookies, I added some sprinkles. And so with that bowl that you have out, carefully pour your sprinkle bag into a bowl. It's easier to get the sprinkles out of a bowl than out of that bag. All right, so we're going to start flooding, and I'm gonna start flooding the cookie that I started with, which was that chili pepper. So I'm gonna get that close to me, and when you start flooding, maybe if you come closer, I'll show you the technique I use for flooding. So I start at the outside, and I kind of do a circular motion as I'm squeezing out that icing. And notice I'm squeezing at the top of my bag. I'm not holding the bag in the middle because I don't want it to be a volcano and explode. So I'm squeezing at the top, and I'm just getting out a lot of icing. It seems like too much, but I promise you want your icing to cover your cookie because it'll dry nice and smooth and it'll look really nice. So squeeze out a bunch of icing and then use a toothpick to push the icing right up to the edge. Push it up to those outlines that you made. Look at the top of the cookie, the side of the cookie. You don't want to see any bare cookie peeking through between the outline and your flooded area. And after you're done playing around with it and you let it be, it's gonna just start to settle. It just starts to smooth out. If there are any bumpy spots like that, sometimes I play just a little more. And when I leave it alone, it's just going to start to settle and become a nice solid surface. Same thing is gonna happen with the taco. You're just going to flood that whole area one solid color. And maybe you have a different method for flooding. Maybe you start in the middle and work your way out. That's fine too. You're gonna come up with your own way to do it, your own method. You can use the outside, the tip of your bag to spread out the icing. I do that sometimes. Or the toothpick method is fine too. However you can get that icing right up to the edge is just fine. All right, now on this lime wedge, you'll notice in this example, there's an interesting thing happening. This is called marbling, and this technique has to happen when the icing is wet. So I'm gonna show you that now. So on the lime, I flood the whole thing green to begin. Seems like so much icing, but you really don't want it. You don't want it to be so thin that you're spreading it out with your toothpick. It's not like butter on bread. You really want a thick coating of icing on top so it will look smooth. So I'm gonna use a toothpick to just spread it out to each edge. And then I'm gonna show you the marbling. The icing can be pushed around while it's wet, but when it starts to dry, and it dries rather quickly, you can't play with it anymore. So while this icing is wet, I'm immediately going to pick up my white, and I'm going to make a white half circle just down here. I'm not gonna come across the top. I'm just gonna go right like that. And then I'm gonna take a toothpick, and I'm gonna start in the middle. I'm gonna drag up here, and halfway between these two spots, halfway between the top and this middle area, I'm gonna find the middle, and I'm gonna drag in here. I'm gonna find that halfway over here and drag in there. That's just supposed to give the effect of how a lime has that inside, that it has that fun little pattern. So that's what I'm gonna do to that, and I'm gonna let that be. I'm not gonna add any of those details quite yet. This is just the base. So while that green is handy, keep going on your cactus. On the cactus, those sprinkles that you see on the example, those happened in the very end in the detailing stage. So I did not add sprinkles to this icing. Right now, I am just flooding the whole thing green. I'm gonna get a toothpick, spread it out. There we go. All right, I'm done with the cactus. Next, let's do the sombrero. I'll spread it to the outside. And notice when I'm doing this step, I often set my bags down. If I leave it in my hand, I risk it dripping icing onto my other cookies. So it's always good to set it down. If you are holding your bag, it's best to hold it upright like this so the icing doesn't spill out onto your work or onto your lap. All right. So I'd like you to go ahead and finish flooding all the rest of your cookies now too. So the last step we're gonna do is detailing, and that's where we put all the finishing touches on the cookies. Now some of the bags I trimmed on the bigger side, and so I want to rebag those, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So in your kit, there are a few extra piping bags. You can do this step if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. It doesn't change the way they taste at all. So I just folded it inside out and put my hand in, and I'm gonna trim off the tip of my bag a lot. Don't do this over your cookies, do it off to the side. Put the whole bag down in and get all that icing out. All right, until there's nothing left. Set that aside, and you can either tie a knot, like I'm gonna do, or you can use a rubber band or a hair tie, any way to close the bag so we can start fresh, start again. I'm also gonna rebag my green. I trimmed my yellow and my green awfully big. So those are the colors I'm gonna rebag. And I'm gonna trim these now on the smaller side. Not too small, but much smaller than I had before for the flooding. Kind of like how you started to begin it all. All right, so we are ready. So I'm gonna start back to where my flooding all began, and that was with the chili pepper. So on the chili pepper, I still need to add the stem, and I am gonna add some of these little shine marks. So here we go. So I'm going to give it a little stem, and it also has a little bit of leaf action going on. So I'm gonna just let that one dry just a little bit. I like this one to be on top of the red, so that's why I didn't do it prior to now. And I know chili peppers don't exactly have shine marks on them, but this is how I do chili peppers. Maybe you'll come up with a fun way to do them too. I just do those on the different curves, alternating back and forth. All right, I'm gonna move on to this lime since I have the white in my hand, and I'm gonna add a little dot, a circle, in each of these areas, and using a toothpick, probably a fresh toothpick or a wiped off one. These are crusty looking. I'm just going to pull it out, drag it out just a little bit to make it look like a teardrop or a seed. go. There's some seeds. All right. The taco. So using the colors I have, we're gonna make a vegan taco because we don't have brown in this color scheme, so it's vegan, except there's a lot of butter in our cookies, so we can't really call them vegan at all. So we have some black olives. I love black olives on tacos. I'm actually having tacos tonight. I wish we had black olives. We don't. I'm just starting to space out my toppings. I like tomatoes on my tacos. Let's do some tomato chunks. My goal is for all this stuff to kind of like blend together. I don't need this to look like the real deal. I just want it to fill in this cookie area. So however you want to space it is good. Okay, let's do some sour cream next. You guys, we have so much sour cream at our house right now. It is hilarious. I put sour cream on our list from Sam's Club, and my husband brought home a sour cream that would literally last us a whole year. It won't, because I'm sure it'll go bad by then, but we've got sour cream in case anybody needs any. So I'm just gonna add some green in these spaces for lettuce. You can make your taco with whatever toppings you like. All right, and then because this is just such a big empty space right now, I think it's fun to draw a little face. Draw a little guy with a mustache. So I draw the mustache first, and when I make something like this, I like to just do the outline first. And if I like how it turned out, then I fill it in. If I don't like how it looks, I just go over it and keep making it a little bigger. But I tend to start on the smaller side with details like this. That way, if it doesn't look good, I can just add to it until I make it the way I like it. So it's pretty much symmetrical, right? I think my left side looks better. It's really hard to make things symmetrical. I'm gonna use my toothpick to just give it a little bit more of a peek. Okay, and then I'm gonna give him some eyes. I'm gonna wipe this off too. Notice how there's so much black icing on this now. If you want your detail work to look good, use a clean bag. There we go, our little Mexican taco. All right, I just remembered this little chili pepper. He's ready for this. So I'm gonna go back here. Sorry to be jumping all over, but this is how I work. I go all over the place. This is ready to fill in. There we go, little stem and leaves. All right, for the cactus, here's how this one works. This is the way I did it. I made all these grooves first, and then while those grooves were wet, I added the sprinkles. So that's how that look happened. So here's what I did. I went over the middle portion. It's kind of like I'm re-outlining it in segments now. So I did that, and I did each of the arms. And then I go back and I add some lines to make some texture. And in the middle, I'm not having the lines necessarily be straight. A little bit wavy, give it some grooves. We're gonna add all the little sprinkles, which represent like the thorns, the little spikes. I don't know the technical cactus name. And this is going to stick to the wet parts. I got a little carried away on the first one. I was kind of thinking they would all just fall off when I was done, and they didn't. So I'm gonna add fewer sprinkles this time. And it's hard to get them to stick on there. So that's probably why I added so many sprinkles to the first one. You guys, I have seen some cookie people that I watch use tweezers to do sprinkles. I could never have the patience to do that, but I have a feeling that's how some people get their sprinkles, in just the right places. I am not that cookier. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop there with sprinkles. I'm gonna let that start to dry before I tip it upright and try to knock off a few. All right, sombrero. You can decorate sombreros in so many ways. I just used the colors I had. I think I might add black to the detailing this time. Let's see how that goes. I think it looked a little Christmassy down here before, so I think I want to add black in the mix. That might make it less Christmassy. So to get my spacing, I just alternate colors. I'm not going to put red and green together. Is that silly? I think it looks like Christmas if I do. And I just want it to be summer so much. Oops. Careful with where you're sending the bags. I just dented my cookie a bit. These are kind of like the little pom-poms that are hanging down at the bottom of the sombrero. Whoops. I should really set these in the correct order. I'm going to do a little surgery here real quick and get off this green because I think it's going to be showing. I think I can cover it up. We'll see. There we go. I think cookie decorating is therapeutic. I think it's really fun and relaxing, and I hope that you find that too. So that's like representing some little pom-pom decoration at the bottom. I'm gonna add just like a swirly line. Okay. Let's add some bands at the top. And even add a black band. Incorporate some more of that black because I used it at the bottom. You can really change up the color when you start doing your decorating. Let's do red. And there's that. So why don't you guys go ahead and finish detailing the rest of your flooded cookies. That you have all your cookies detailed, I would recommend letting them dry a little bit before you eat them. Personally, I like them to dry overnight. I think they taste better the next day. But if it's Cinco de Mayo and you want to eat them tonight with your fiesta, then go right ahead. But store them overnight in a box. Don't stack them. They're all going to be drying for the next 24 hours. So you can just keep them in the box that they came in, and they're good at room temperature for 2 days. So I hope that you had so much fun. It was great spending time with you, and I hope you enjoy your cookies. Feel free to share your picture with me too. I'd love to see your work. Bye.